Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. So today we are going to continue with Office automation system, and the second part is on introduction to Spreadsheet. So Spreadsheet, it is designed to provide a digital form of the paper-based worksheet. So it is arranged in the rows and columns of a grid, and it can be used to manipulate and also to do any kind of calculations. So one of the most popular software is Microsoft Excel. Spreadsheet has various functions. So just for some example, it has numerous rows and columns for data and value storage, and it can support mathematical formulas and also calculations. You can also do data sorting and analysis. You can have multiple worksheets and interlink between them. You can have integration and visualization of data in the form of graph and charts based on the data that you have input in the table. So advantages of worksheet. So data can be entered quickly and accurately. You can also do any recalculation easily and quickly as well. You can do simple charts based on the data that has been entered. You can share those information with other users. You can also produce a new worksheet easily. And you can manage important information in a more orderly manner. Excel's window element. So this is a screenshot of Excel. So the important thing over here is you can see that there's the row and column, right? And then the row and column, when you combine it, you call it as a cell. For example, over here, it says B5 at this cell, right? That means that it is at column B, row number 5. That's why it says over here B5, right? So other things that Excel has, it has the title bar, the panel tab, the toolbar, the formula bar. Okay, so formula bar, you can write any formula, any calculation that you want inside the formula bar, or you can write it in any cell. It should work the same thing, right? And then you have the navigation tab and also the tab sheet, right? So you can add as many sheets as you need. Basic formula. Excel allows us to create numerous of formulas. For example, we can have multiplication, addition, subtraction, and also other methods. So below is a part of reference formula panel in Excel, right? So we can look at the formula by clicking on the show formula on the tab. Then it will show the formula that has been used. Okay, so entering data. So we can have different types of data in Excel. So it can be, for example, in the screenshot over here, it says general, or if you are sure that you are going to enter a number, then you can change from general to number so that you can do any addition more smoothly, right? You can also use tags, date, time, function, and other things. Relative and absolute reference. So it says over here, when user create a formula, it must refer from another cell. So this cell reference can either be relative or absolute reference or a mixed reference. So what does it actually mean by relative and absolute reference? So relative, it means that it is very depending on the row or column where the formula resides. While absolute reference, you are making sure that it remains as a constant. For example, we have here, it says relative reference A1, right? So you have column A, row 1. If you have absolute reference, you would have the $sign, $A$1. That means that you want to have the absolute column A, and then absolute row, which is row 1, meaning that you are fixing it. You don't want any other row, any other column. You can also have mixed reference. For example, over here, we have $1, meaning that A, which is the column, 1 is the row. You are only locking the row. Or you can have the $A1, meaning that the column is locked. You can change the row. If you want to know more about relative and absolute reference, you can watch this video where it goes through some examples about relative and absolute reference. Creating cell name. In Microsoft Excel, user can name a single cell or a range of cells to make formulas easier to read and remember. If the user have row and columns labels on a worksheet, user can refer to them directly in a formula. User can use them as names that represent the associated cells. User can also create a name that represents the same cell or range of cells on more than one worksheet. For example, let's see this screenshot. So we can see that at column D, from row 3 up until row 14, all this information, it has been renamed as total sales. So you can refer to all of those, the range of it, as total sales. Another example, if you see column D, row 15, so that is being named as total all. Right? So if you want to refer to that cell, you can refer it to total all instead of referring it as D15. Creating cell name. So to create the cell name, first of all, you can select the cell, range of cells, or any selection that you want to name, and then click on the name box at the left end of the formula bar, and then you can type the name of the cell, and then you can press enter. So you cannot name a cell while you are changing the content of the cell. So you can try this one out and then see what kind of name of the cell that are not allowed. Formula and functions. An equal sign as the first character in a cell that contains a formula. The equal sign tells Excel that the content of the cell is a formula. Without the equal sign, the formula will not calculate anything. It will simply display the text of the formula. So if you see the screenshot over here, we have equal D3 plus D4 plus D5, meaning that you are doing the addition because of the equal sign. So what you want to do over here is you want to read at column D. So assuming that these numbers are at column D, it should be at row 3. So the first one at row 3, the second one, column D, row 4, the third one is column D, row 5. And then you want to do the addition of it. Priority ordering. So the first one would be power or equivalent in brackets. And then we have multiply and divide. And then we have add and minus. So the formula, if you can see in this table over here, say that you have some numbers at column A, row 1. You want to do it to the power of 3, whatever value at cell A1, you would want to say that the value of it is to the power of 3. And then addition, you just use the plus sign. So example over here, we have A1, whatever value at cell A1, add to it whatever value at cell A2. The same thing for minus, multiply, divide, and you can do a mixture of any of the operations. Explicit values and cell references. So we can have formula with only cell references because we have the values inside the cell. For example, we have A1 times B1, meaning that whatever value at column A, row 1, times it with whatever value at column B, row 1. We can also have formula with only literal values. For example, here we have 100 divided by 27, so we can write it straight away. Or we can have formula with both cell references and also literal values. For example, over here we have whatever value at cell A1 divided by 100. We have the sum function over here. So sum, it is doing the same thing as if you are doing the addition using the plus sign. For example, over here we have the function equal sum in bracket 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so it will do the addition of it. We can also have equal sum A1, B1, C1. So it will go to the cells and get whatever the value is and do the addition. We can also do a mixture where we have equal sum 9, A1, B2, 5, C1. Right? So it will get the values and then add it to the numbers that we have. As mentioned previously, if you want to see the formula that are being used, you can go to formulas and then click on show formulas, or you can use the shortcut and press on your keyboard Control and also the symbol tilde. So here it's showing the most used formula in Excel 2016. So we have over here if, and, or, where those are used for conditionals and control flow. We have if error, used commonly to silence errors and also show a blank cell instead. And then we have sum, so we saw sum earlier. We have count, average, sum ifs, count if. And then we also have VLOOKUP and also HLOOKUP. It is easier to use than index match, but there are limitations. Hence, there is also the index match. For text manipulation, there's left, which is used for cutting long text. There's also mid search, used to extract substring from text. There's also substitute, and there's also array formula to make the spreadsheet neater and more efficient. And then there's also indirect, which is used to create formulas with dynamic referencing. So these are just some of many formulas that are available in Excel. Here are some examples of the formula from previous slide. So we have over here if. So the way to write it, you would have your equal and then you have your if, and then the first one, it would be the logical test, comma, and then if the value is true, it will display whatever the true part is. If the logical test is false, then it will display whatever the false value is. For example, over here we have if 5 is larger than 2. If this is true, it will print out 5 is larger. If this is false, it will print out 2 is larger. So you can try and write this formula on your Excel and then see what is the output of it. You should get 5 is larger. Okay, the second one is using the AND, right? So in the AND formula, it will take the first logical, comma, the second logical, and so on. For example, over here, we have AND 1 is less than 2, and then 2 is less than 1. So this logical function, you need to remember back to your AND and OR functions that you have learned in high school, right? So what happens is, if you have the first one, if it is true, and then the second one is true as well, which is true and true, you will get the output as true. If you have the first one is true, the second one is false, then you will get the output as false, right? So if you have the first one is false, the second one is false, you will get false as the output. If you have the first one is false, the second one is true, then you will still get false, right? So this is using the AND. In this logical function table on your left side, I have included the OR as well, right? So if you replace the AND with OR, then you will get slightly different result, because in the logical function for OR, if you have true or true, you will get true. If you have true or false, you will still get true. If you have false or false, you will get false, right? So you can try this different logical and then see what would be the output of it, right? In this example over here, when we have our AND, 1 is less than 2, 2 is less than 1, so the first part is true, the second part is false. That's why we get false if we run this formula in Excel. So if you compare this first one, the if, and also this AND, you can see that I use small letters, and then the second one I use in capital, right? So in Excel, it doesn't really matter whether you use capital or not. It will still do the same thing. Okay, so the third one is an example of using if error, right? So in if error, for example, over here, I just put A1, which is in cell A1. If you look at the left side, I have my column A, and then at my row 1, I have the number 1. If 1 is divided by 0, if that gives me an error, it will display re-enter number, right? So if you write this one in Excel, you will see that it will display re-enter number. You say that if you change this 0 to 1, then it will not display re-enter number, because there's no error when you do A1, which is 1. 1 divided by 1, there is no error. Okay, and then over here, another example, I show about count if, right? So count if, what I did over here, I say count if from A1 until A10, right? So this is the range of it, from A1 until A10. And then it should count how many numbers are there if the values are larger than 1, right? So if I run this one, it should give me 4, because at my column A, row 1 until 5, the numbers that are larger than 1 are only number 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 4 numbers. If you want to see more examples, you can watch this video where it covers the standard formula if error, if, and also OR. We also have the lookup function in Excel. So we have VLOOKUP and also HLOOKUP, right? So VLOOKUP, so that refers to vertical column, while in HLOOKUP, that refers to the horizontal, which is the row. So these functions are used to find values specified in the table for comparison purpose. So over here, there are 2 videos where you can watch those to know more about VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. I'm going to show you a simple example in the next slide. Lookup example. So in this example, I have this table of students and also their marks. And I want to find out what are their grades, right? So for example, over here, let's say we have this student named Ali. So quiz 1, he got 20, quiz 2, 15, quiz 3, 10. And then this total over here is the total marks for quiz 1, quiz 2, and also quiz 3. So Ali gets 45 marks. So I want to find out what is the grade for 45, right? So I would use my VLOOKUP, the value that I want to find, the lookup value, is 45. I can use F5 to represent the number 45. And then the second one would be the table array. So I select the mark and grade range table over here at your right. So that is from K5 up until L9. So I select those. And then the last part would be the index number. So I wrote that as 2, because if you look at the table of mark and grade range, there are 2 columns of it, right? So when I wrote 2, that means that I want to read whatever value for the grade range. If I write it as 1, then I would want to know what would be the mark of it. Right? So you can try different numbers and see what would be the output of it. So after I have written my VLOOKUP formula, if I click enter, then it will show me that Ali has the grade of D. So you can try using the same VLOOKUP formula for Abu, Ahmad, Raju, and also Lee. I will share this table on your online learning so you can try it out. So for HLOOKUP, so here is an example. It is a similar example from before. The only difference is the way that I wrote my mark and grade range table on your right side, right? So because HLOOKUP, H stands for horizontal, meaning that it will read the row. Before VLOOKUP, it reads the vertical part, which is the column, right? So similar as before, I would write my HLOOKUP, the lookup value, same example as before. I want to find out what is Ali's grade based on the total marks that he has, right? So I select on the marks over here, which is at F15, and then the range of the table array. So I would select from L13 up until P14, and then I want to read the second row, which is the grade range. First row would be the mark, right? So when I click enter, it will show me that Ali has grade D, right? So you can try this one out as well.